we go. We got
all right,
spicy
fellas. What's going on? Me and Danny already interrupting each other off the top of the show. We're doing some Dynasty rookie mock drafts. We're gonna try and mix in a one quarterback one as well, because I know all the one quarterback bros are always sad that we always talk superflex. So we're gonna do a superflex one first with members of our Discord. If you guys want to be part of cooler, stuff like this, Discord, it was open for a while now. It is closed off to patron members only. So if you want to check it out. I believe just the $2 tier will get you into it as well. If you want to just sign up with the Question Master, that gives you the ability for to ask us questions at any time, and then also to get into our Discord. And then, of course, it's also available via the other 2 tiers on Patreon there as well. So we have the draft filled up pretty quick. So, Danny, if you wanna throw your stuff on the screen there, and I'll get our names off the screen here for a second, and then we'll get right into this. And then I saw a lot of comments already too, especially about Trey Lance. And Jackson Smith and Jigbo looks like what people are talking about in the chat at the moment. So can you set the pick timer for a minute, by the way?
It's at 30 seconds, correct?
Yeah, put it on for a minute so people have time, and we have time to talk in between picks a little bit.
Sounds good.
And then turn the wow off too.
Yep. Wait, turn the
sound.
What?
The sound.
Oh, the wow.
Yeah,
he just took that in.
Yeah, we don't need to be hearing that.
All right. So for those of you that are already in here, I'm going to be randomizing this order. Bang.
Also, this is way too many rounds, and make it. Yeah.
Yeah. I just realized that here. One sec. Roster settings. Okay. There we go. Perfect. All right. You ready?
Yep. I am ready to go.
Bet. I got the
boys up at 102.
Yeah, we're usually flip spots for real.
Yeah, usually. I would say this is a spot where I'm going to need to get comfortable picking from, because I had so many tanking rosters, and only one of which actually got Bijan. The rest of them are 102. So I'm most likely going to have a lot of quarterbacks from this draft class, given that spot. As of right now, Bryce Young, I'm built out our quarterback database in our Patreon, and it looks very clear to me that Bryce Young is the clear best quarterback in this class. He's got the size concerns, but if this guy was 6'3", 210 pounds, we're not even having this conversation. He would be clearly the quarterback one in this class. And I think if it's just size that we're worried about in today's NFL, he can survive. If it was, 2004 or something like that, we'd have a lot of worries about it, but the quarterbacks barely get hit nowadays. So I'm not too worried about him, coming in at 194, which is what, according to Daniel Jeremiah and Mel Kiper and some of these guys that are more connected, he is trying to get to 200 before, combine weigh-ins, so that teams are less concerned about his size. But for the most part, I have no problems taking Bryce Young. I think he's going to be guaranteed probably first or second overall pick in the draft, and a guy that, while he isn't going to provide the rushing upside of a Will Levis or an Anthony Richardson potentially, the passing discrepancy between how much better of a prospect he is completely different. Like, it's not even close. Like, if they were close, yeah, you favor the higher upside quarterbacks, but it's not close.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, Bryce Young, obviously fantastic player. In terms of PFF passing grade, accuracy, you name it. Very, very good in terms of being a passer. Obviously, the concerns there would be the size. If this guy was legitimately, 6'1", 6'2", 220 pounds, this may be in contention with one of the better prospects we've seen at the quarterback position in quite some time. Even at his size right now, he's still the clear-cut number one quarterback, like you said. People are just going to throw out, the Kyler Murray comparison because he's small, but I actually see Deshaun Watson in the sense that he's a good processor, very accurate down the field, can make plays ad-lib out of structure, and obviously, he's not got the height of Deshaun Watson, but in terms of what potential role he could play in the next level, especially if he's, an Indianapolis Colt, Houston Texan, I think he can be, a top 10 quarterback in Dynasty for years to come.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, he's not going to probably ever be a top 5 Dynasty quarterback unless we just see a dynamite processor, which is possible. Like, guys like Todd McShay and Mel Kiper have used the word special to describe how well he processes the game mentally. So we got a lot of picks running off the board here.
Yeah.
CJ Stroud goes 103, makes a lot of sense. Gibbs, again, I'm still worried about the size. I personally am not going to be taking him that high at 104. I'd probably favor both my top 2 receivers and potentially Will Levis over him as well, just given that the draft capital with the quarterbacks, the wide receivers, and I don't know what the size concerns are with Gibbs. JSN 105 makes sense. Anthony Richardson, he sounds like he's going to be a locked and loaded first round pick. I watched the first draft podcast, and Todd McShay said that most teams are valuing him as a fringe first rounder, and some teams have him, potentially as quarterback 2 or 3 in the class. So if you get that kind of evaluation from a player, usually that means they're going to go in the first round.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if this guy goes in the first round, late first, he's probably about where Dan took him. But I mean, if he got, top 10 draft capital, you can make the argument that, with him, CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, I still think Bryce Young is probably going to be the first one because he should be the first pick. But I mean, if Anthony Richardson goes in the top 10, Anthony Richardson goes in the top 5, I think he's a top 3 to 4 lock into your drafts. Transitioning, I just want to quickly defend my pick for a reason. I mean, you guys know I'm a big Quentin Johnson guy. Size, speed, X-ability at the next level. I am a little bit concerned that some of these guys may fall down the board relative to where we expected. Maybe teams aren't quite high on this wide receiver class. However, from a pure talent standpoint, I think the pick there for me would have been between him and Jordan Addison. I slightly prefer Quentin Johnson because I think the upside's there. But if you want to take Addison there, I think they're both clear cut the next player off the board. I think it's a little tear break after those guys for me personally. I like Zach Charbonnet, but after Addison personally, I think, there's a little bit of a discrepancy there between the next, tier of Charbonnet, Downs, Mayer, even Boutte.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to ask questions like, how good is this class in relation to last year's class? I would say absolutely, without a doubt, the top 9 to 10 overall prospects clearly better in this class. Yes. I will say the teardrop is similar that we saw last year once, a Jahan Dotson type was off the board for us. I mean, Christian Watson, George Pickens, those type of guys, a lot of you guys liked those players last year. We weren't as big of fans. And I think we see a similar situation there this year. Only this year, I think those 110, 111, 112 type of caliber prospects are better in this class. So there is a similar drop off as in like late first this year and late first last year, maybe not quite as good as, a late first is, chalked up to be. But for the most part, I would say, it's still a pretty good spot there. So yeah, Addison went off the board. Charbonnet, who I'm getting more and more high on. Josh Downs, again, we know he's a great, player. He's very productive. Michael Mayer, I think he's going to be a locked and loaded first round NFL draft pick. And I do think he belongs to go at the tail end of the first round. There was a time where people were consensus ready to take Michael Mayer as like a top 8 overall pick. And I think in tight end premium leagues, he should absolutely be in that conversation if he tests well, because if he tests well, I literally don't have any question marks about his prospect profile. Like, he is one of the more productive tight end prospects we've ever seen. He's going to get the draft capital. And if he runs, 4.62 and jumps good and, has good agilities and stuff like that, and 6'4", 250 pounds, that's going to be great, weight adjusted type of numbers. We're talking about a guy that has, Mark Andrews level athleticism at his size. And with that kind of draft capital and his production, he paints a very complete tight end profile.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that as well. Obviously, very, very solid player. The only question mark I have is he ever going to be that elite athlete? But like we've seen with a guy like TJ Hawkinson, Dalton Schultz in the last couple of years, that you don't really need to be, that 99.
I think this conversation is moot, man. I think he's going to test well, and everybody's going to feel stupid for thinking he wasn't a good athlete.
Well, the question is, like, testing well for him, I think would be like a 4.6 type of guy, which is still really
very good time for a 250-pound athlete.
No, and I get that. That's very good. But what I'm saying is, like, a guy like Brock Bowers next year might be like a 4.45 guy.
Right, but that's like superhuman level, and Brock Bowers is also probably 10 to 15 pounds lighter than Michael Mayer as well.
But that's the conversation I'm basically having, where like maybe he's not going to be, Kyle Pitts.
No, he's not Kyle Pitts from an athleticism standpoint. The very few tight ends are, but I do think he's Mark Andrews from an athleticism standpoint, which of course is more than enough to be great in the NFL. We are going to see this run of running backs too. I took Tucker at 2-2. If he's going to fall here, I'm literally going to select him here every single time. I value him in line with Jahmyr Gibbs in terms of as prospects. Now, we are concerned a little bit, at least I am, about where Tucker's going to actually get drafted in the NFL, because you see these, big analysts putting out, 2-round mocks, and sometimes they have Gibbs in them in the first round. And I've yet to see Sean Tucker in one of these 2-round mocks very often. Sometimes you'll see him, I think we did one where he was like 60th or something to the Giants. And, sometimes he goes in like the late second round. If he gets late second round draft capital and I can get him at the 2-2 of my rookie drafts, I think that's awesome value.
Yeah, 100%. And transitioning here, 208, another potential, back that can find his way on day 2. I'm a little bit concerned, like you mentioned, haven't really been seeing a ton of mocks with him going in that second, third round area. But right now, from what I know, from an athleticism standpoint, from a workhorse standpoint, size, speed, I really like Kendre Miller here, taking the swing here. You could argue, Zay Flowers, Rashid Rice, because of the potential draft capital they may see, potential top 40 wide receiver picks. But I just think if Kendre Miller lands on day 2, potentially has a chance to start on an NFL team. I just like that combination there, potential upside.
I'm starting to like I haven't watched them yet, obviously, but their profiles are decent, and I'm starting to get excited about when I watch Zay Flowers and do his like tail to tape and stuff, because he kind of does have like a little bit of the Jahan Dotson feel to him, just from what the highlights that I've seen. As far as, an undersized wide receiver who just produces, just gets open, is able to do pretty much everything well. So I'm very excited to see that. I think these wide receiver prospects that are after, QJ, Jordan Addison, JSN, and Downs and Boutte are probably going to litter like the area of the draft we're in right now, the late second round, early kind of third round area, because I expect for the most part, Tucker, A-Chain, Evans, Bigsby, Miller, these guys to be like the early to mid second round area, which is, it's different than what we've seen in recent years, because before we had such deep wide receiver classes that we were like, you shouldn't be reaching on these running backs in the early second round, because you can get, Elijah Moores, and you can get, Jahan Dotsons, and, some of these guys last year. And this year, it's almost the exact opposite scenario, where the running back class is as deep as we've seen these wide receiver classes be. And the wide receiver class, there's a bit more of a talent drop off, but there's still some good, second round, late second round, early third round caliber guys like Marvin Mims and Rashee Rice and some of these dudes that we're seeing go.
100%. So, looking through our first two picks, you're back on the clock here. You got Bryce Young and Sean Tucker, strong start there. Myself, I'm getting my current wide receiver one prior to the draft with Quentin Johnson and Kendre Miller. So you're back here 302. A couple, interesting flexible pieces, maybe even a tight end. What are you leaning here?
I think this draft class, the strength of it is running back. So for the most part, I would say when you're, caught in a spot where you're like, I don't really love the board, I think you should probably be leaning running back this year, because we've seen, 7 or 8 running backs go off the board. I still like a couple guys here that I think are going to get good draft capital. I'm going to take a guy who is productive. I'll take Izzy Abanikanda here. And then I also, I like Kenny McIntosh still, who's still on the board. I know Tajay Spears from Tulane's getting a lot of love. Chase Brown, obviously very productive year. Roshan Johnson will be at the Senior Bowl. I'm sure NFL teams are going to, it wouldn't shock me at all if Roshan Johnson's like a top 50 NFL draft pick. One bit, because he's a good player, man. Like anytime he had to spell Bijan Robinson, he was very good, and he's a good receiver. He can pretty much do everything well. He kind of had that, like, we can't blame him for not being able to produce, right? He's behind one of the best running back prospects we've seen in the last 15 years. So the fact that when he got opportunities, he was productive, it's almost like kind of a, he's kind of like the Zach Evans light of this class, because some people, Zach Evans truthers, will make the, argument, well, he competed for touches with Quinshon Judkins this year, and, Kendre Miller back in his TCU days. And I think Roshan Johnson's kind of a similar situation.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Also, between Roshan, Abanikanda, and Chase Brown, I was really hoping one would fall. Wanted to mention, Chase Brown. I did it last year, you guys know, but just want to give a little shout out. Played against him as well. Mr. London Mustang over there. Guy's got some jets. So.
Oh, get ready for Danny to mention that anytime Chase Brown's name came up, because he did it with Mechie last year.
Every time.
Continued to happen.
To be fair, like I played with Mechie too, so it was like a little bit different. But with Chase Brown, like fucking London, he was fucking crazy. Like,
yeah, he was pretty good. So I'm gonna rip through some comments here while we wait for your pick to come up.
Yeah.
Rubber Bandit was first one in here. He says, "Yo, what are we sending to buy low on Trey Lance?" Given what his kind of market value has been, and this news report I'm putting in quote unquotes, because Mike Silver speculated that Brock Purdy would be the starting quarterback. It wasn't actually an official news report that he said the team is leaning towards this or anything. And it was, a broadcast on Twitter as if he was reporting that, not necessarily speculating. So if people are worried about that and they saw that, thing on Twitter, if they're connected to like the Twitter scene, I would say if you can get Trey Lance for like a late first and like a small piece, you're stealing. Like you're absolutely stealing, because even if the worst case scenario happens, I still think his value will be QB 15 to 20 on the open market, because there's too many teams right now in need of quarterbacks. You're telling me that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Atlanta Falcons, Las Vegas Raiders, all these teams that are in need of quarterbacks wouldn't rather send, a second and a fourth to the San Francisco 49ers for Trey Lance than spend a top 15 pick on Will Levis? Like, to me, I just think we're talking about a guy that even if the worst case scenario happens and San Francisco sticks with Brock Purdy, a guy's still going to get a starting job somewhere else.
Yeah, no,
he's
100%.
played like 3 games in the NFL. Legit.
And I think it was Hayden Winks that tweeted it out perfectly. Let me quickly see if I can find it. I retweeted it, but basically summed up my thoughts on the situation, right? Like, I get it. Purdy's played well enough to the point where you probably got to give him the nod at this point. Even if you're San Francisco, like the way that they've operated, the way that they want a distributor, you're probably going to give him the nod, even though I still personally think that it should be Lance. What Hayden said that I agreed with, I would not trade a cost-controlled quarterback with the traits that Lance has because a 7th rounder went on a good run with the best skill group in the NFL. Because that's quite literally what's happening right now. And again, I don't want to discredit him because he's played, above replacement level, but there are so many guys out there that, given the current system, given the current skills positions around that San Francisco offense, you could pretty much insert, like, realistically, any top 40-ish level NFL quarterback could probably at least manage the game from that spot.
Yeah. I'm pretty much on the same page. Like, it's
right.
And I think we're going to have an answer, right or wrong, with what happens the rest of the playoffs. Because if Brock Purdy struggles tomorrow against the Cowboys, they lose the game, I think it's way more likely we have Trey Lance as the starting quarterback. I think Brock Purdy personally would have to win the Super Bowl for them to make him the starter. I think even if he loses in the Super Bowl, they would still go back to Lance.
Damn,
that's just my opinion. It's possible that, like, they lose the Super Bowl and Purdy plays well, and that doesn't really matter. But for me, I think they would have to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, no, I would agree. Also, I was hoping Parker Washington would fall. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. There's a couple more guys. I like Xavier Hutchinson. He's graded out really well for PFF. He's like the second highest graded receiver in the country this year. So, I mean, anytime, people discredit PFF all the time, but they do, for what it's worth, have like a film process. So if Xavier Hutchinson is able to perform well on a down-to-down basis, then it's got to be worth a 4th round rookie pick for sure.
Even just like, from a production standpoint, just taking the shot here. I don't mind that call.
Yeah.
Oh God, Darnell Washington was available. I didn't even see him. Damn it.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was. Did you see Fusu's tweet, by the way?
Which one?
He was like, people will watch film.
Oh yeah.
He's like the same people that claim they watch a lot of film and tweet out like, what games of this player should I watch? Could also just buy a PFF subscription. Now, I don't think PFF is like the be all end all of like film grading, and I think Fus is kind of a clown in general. But for the most part, I don't disagree with him. I do think that a lot of people overrate like their own film analysis to the point that, like, if you don't have the time for it and you wanted to rely on PFF film analysis, I don't think that's a terrible strategy.
It's not terrible, but I will say there are a lot of inconsistencies with it, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. I think on running backs, they are quite accurate, though. They've been quite accurate at evaluating running backs. Wide receivers, not so much. I think and quarterbacks especially not, but but running backs specifically, they've actually been quite good at.
The problems I have with them are where they measure quarterbacks.
Yeah, quarterbacks like don't trust PFF
and DBs.
Yeah,
like it's what I have a problem with how they track DBs is you're trying to make a tangible credit to, like, oh, this guy allowed this many yards after catch. This guy allowed, he was targeted this many times. When a lot of times in the NFL, especially in zone, like, you're just attributing the closest defender. You don't actually know what that defender's responsibility is on that play. Like, I
think that's why running backs, they're good at evaluating, because running backs, it's just run the ball, catch the ball. Like, you don't need to really know what the play call is to evaluate running backs well. Like with wide receivers, even still too, I think you can evaluate receivers at a decent level with not knowing what the play call is. But quarterback is so complicated. You have no idea what he's supposed to do on a play. So it's hard to say, this throw was great, this throw was bad, this decision was bad, this decision was great.
Well, right, exactly. Because as we know in the NFL, especially at the quarterback position, everything is from a route concept standpoint in the passing game. Basically, understanding your defensive leverages and understanding where your holes are going to come in terms of their coverage. Because a lot of zone is being played in the NFL right now, realistically, because the receivers are so damn athletic, you can't man them up on a down-to-down basis, right? So when you're watching a quarterback play and you're understanding, okay, maybe he's throwing this tight window throw and it gets picked off, it's still probably, especially on 3rd and long, the much better decision to push the ball down the field, try to make a play and fit it into a tight window than it is taking the check down that goes for, 5 to 8 yards after the catch. But the thing is that graded, that good, dump off throw is going to get graded better than the throw trying to make a play down the field.
And that's exactly why Andy Dalton was a top 12 quarterback on PFF grades this year. Yeah. Let's rip through some questions. Then we'll kind of recap the draft and talk about what we got here. So Pionio says, leave a like. Yeah, I'll definitely appreciate if you guys do leave a like. If you're new around here, hit the subscribe button. More Lance questions. Again, we kind of went over the Lance situation. Live rookie mock. Let's fucking go. Yes, sir. Gibbs or JSN at the 102 in a 1 quarterback draft. I firmly lean. My wide receiver 1 is Jordan Addison, but I know a lot of people have JSN wide receiver 1. If at this moment, if I had to draft before the NFL draft or before the combine or something, I absolutely would take JSN 102 over Jahmyr Gibbs before I see what the dude's measurements are, what, everything about his profile. I need to see it, because what we have with Jahmyr Gibbs, I think everybody's throwing around the Alvin Kamara comparison. And the reason they're doing it is because he has dreads and he can catch the ball. Like, it has really nothing else to do with Alvin Kamara. For me, Alvin Kamara has an elite trait that Jahmyr Gibbs does not have, which is his contact breaking ability. And the reason he has that trait and Gibbs doesn't is because he's 215 pounds, 5'10" or whatever. Jahmyr Gibbs is like 5'11", maybe even 6 feet, 195, 200 pounds or so. I think to me, he's like a worse BMI DeAndre Swift more so than Alvin Kamara, because with Gibbs, you're getting a guy that also doesn't have the most refined run instincts either. He is much better as a receiving back than he is as a running back at this current moment in time. And that's fine. That can work well with fantasy. We saw a guy like even Rachaad White to some extent not be a great running back this year from a pure rushing standpoint and still be a fantasy contributor because he was catching the ball. And that was him splitting a backfield with Fournette. If you had, White in a backfield where he wasn't splitting with a major veteran, he probably would have been even better. But that's kind of like where I see Jahmyr Gibbs. He's a guy that probably will be in a committee of some kind with an early down banger, and he could still be good, just like DeAndre Swift has been good, but he's not necessarily ever going to be, the workhorse that a Zach Charbonnet could be or a Sean Tucker could be at this moment. And I would still take Gibbs over those guys as it currently stands, but they have a higher ceiling because they can be workhorses.
Well, people don't want to admit this because people just want to say, even like for a guy like Devon Achane this year, where their build just simply won't have them being, a 20, 22 plus opportunity per game back. Now, when we say that, that's like eliminating him being, a top 2 or 3 20 plus PPR point per game score. Like, can he still be, a 17 plus PPR point per game score, like an Aaron Jones where he's getting, 18 opportunities per game and he's a consistent running back one for a while? Yeah, that's absolutely valuable on their rookie contract, maybe getting that in fantasy for 5-6 years. But the reason why I like Bijan is just such a clear tier ahead is that he's got that ability, but he's also got the workload potential, and he's also got that goal line potential that no other back has that combo in this entire class. So when we're looking at the lines, right, the reason why Bijan is the 101 and going in, the 1-2 round, whereas every other running back in this class, even if they were to get, first round, top 40 level capital, would be going in the 4th type of area. It's because Bijan, if he hits his ceiling, is like a 21, 22 plus PPR point per game score. The other backs, like I mentioned, more so in that 16 to 18 PPR point per game, low end running back one range.
Right. And the tough thing with Gibbs too is like, we don't want to completely, say we're not going to draft the guy because he's been such like a Debbie darling and, on the scene for so long, highly consensus thought of by the community. He's going to hold value and gain a lot of value if he has a great rookie season. Somebody, Rubber Bandit says, Nelson says Gibbs might be doing 80 reception seasons in the NFL at running back. He absolutely could have monster seasons like that. And that's going to skyrocket his value. If he has an 80 reception rookie season like Christian McCaffrey did, he's going to be like the RB2 or 3 or maybe 4 in Dynasty. And that's absolutely a fact. But to me, like the difference, prospects at wide receiver are very strong. It's not like we're talking about subpar wide receiver prospects. And if JSN has first round draft capital, again, another guy highly thought of by the community, and he has, again, like a 90 catch, 1,000 yards, 7 touchdown rookie season, he'll be the Dynasty wide receiver 3.
The big difference here with Jahmyr Gibbs, and it'll be the most telling to know what exactly his ceiling is in fantasy, is he a 150 carry, 80 catch guy, or is he a 200 carry, 80 catch guy? Like if he can break the mold, if he can be a 200 plus carry guy in addition to the reception ceiling you see, I have no problem if you want to rank him, super, super high. But like I said, I kind of see him more so in that 15 to 18 opportunity per game range. But I mean, if he lands in a great offense, like absolutely,
that's the other thing. Landing spot will be helpful for him too, because like you think of a guy like Austin Eckler. If Eckler was playing a bad offense, like it wouldn't be as fruitful as we've seen, because he didn't start scoring all these touchdowns until Justin Herbert got to town, and he was able to take advantage of a great offense. If Gibbs goes to the Eagles or something, like we're really going to have to revisit this discussion. But if he goes to an offense that's not necessarily conducive to scoring, it's going to impact his ceiling for sure.
Sorry, I quickly want to touch this because I just saw it and I think it's interesting. I think it's the 2022 class, and I don't think it's close at this point.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the top 3 of 2022 is slightly better than the top 3. Maybe like I would have Drake London wide receiver 1 in this class if he was in this class.
I would say as prospects, maybe they're close, but especially like what we know now, like those guys all ended up developing into like 25 plus target share type of players.
I think he means rookies. As prospects personally. As prospects, I would say, yes, give me London, give me Burks, and give me Garrett Wilson over they would be close. They'd be in the same range as JSN and Jordan Addison, but especially given guys like Watson and Pickens and Dotson and Jameson Williams, guys like the depth was just not even close. Like I like Downs. I think, he can probably be a good like fourth wide receiver in this class, probably get first round draft capital or borderline first round draft capital, but he probably would have been like wide receiver 7 or 8 for me in last year's class.
100%. So we'll catch back up to where we left. I believe it was Rubber Bandit.
Yeah, I got it right here. Chris says agree
Claire.
Mostly because of the depth at running back being insane this year versus wide receiver. Yeah, that's the other thing, right? Because if you again, we don't draft based on need, but if you have 3 rookie picks and you have 2 early second rounders and you're deciding between Gibbs and JSN at 102, knowing you have 2 early second rounders and you want to fill out your team, maybe to turn yourself into a competitive window because they're in the same tier. Go with JSN, grab yourself a Charbonnet, grab yourself an A-Chain in the second round, and you should be, better suited to fill out your team that way because the wide receiver class it's a steeper fall off than the running back class for sure.
100%. Totally. I've been burned. What's good, boys? Great day for some ball. Yeah, I cannot wait for football. And after we do a couple of these drafts, we're going to do a one quarterback mock, which, let's be real, we'll probably cut it off after the first 3 rounds at this point.
Yeah, we'll cut it off after 3 rounds for sure.
We'll cut it off at 3 rounds, but in terms of the slate this week, we'll basically be going over our game picks, what we kind of expect, basically what type of matchups to be looking out for. So after we do the next mock draft, stay tuned for that because that'll be a lot of fun to break down.
Yeah, I'll rip through some comments if you want to get that started up and thrown in the chat. So Overplayed actually asked for the Discord link. Again, it is available via Patreon. If you sign up for any of the tiers, it gets emailed to you in the welcome to our Patreon sign up thing. So that's where you can find it. If you've already signed up on our Patreon and you don't know how to get into the Discord, that's how you do it. And Claire actually recently signed up and he's telling them for sure as well. Cody says, maybe a dumb question, but can you customize certain notifications in Discord to certain servers? Yes. On PC, I know you can. I don't know if you can do it from your phone, but if you just right click on it, there's a notification setting that says use category default, all messages only, mentions and nothing. And you can do it by server, I believe. So you should be able to do that. And something that I wanted to float around, idea, I talked this over with Danny, is potentially doing film sessions, quote unquote, because like I said, I think I mentioned this on our last live stream as well. We can't actually physically live stream us watching film on YouTube because there's copyright involved and we'll get, banned for that. Yeah. But what we can do is do it in our Discord. And if you guys are in our Discord, you guys can obviously watch us, break down some of these players and talk about what we're seeing. And, you guys can ask questions and point out stuff to us. And I think that'd be a really cool interactive thing. And I know, Destination Devi Ray G does that as well. And I think that's a great idea. So if you guys are interested in something like that, we can definitely, get some of those going at some point. It's we have all the film, so there's no big deal. We can just kind of hop on the way that we're doing right now and just watch the player.
Yeah, 100%. And maybe we could figure something out. I mean, I'll talk to you after stream. Maybe we could figure something out where whether it's OBS or something, screen capture it and then make it private on YouTube for Patreon.
Yeah, right? You can still get banned even if it's private. Though,
if it's private, okay, no worries.
Yeah, even if it's private, you can still get banned. It would kind of just be more of something that we can do for people in the Discord. That's kind of our limit with it. Unfortunately, I wish we could just because we would do that for every single prospect if we could on YouTube, but we can't because certain broadcast stuff.
Yep.
So they're just kind of talking about this. I'm ready to take Michael Mayer at 110 if Addison is off the board. We'll definitely take him. Ahead of Sharps and Downs. Yeah, I don't think that should be a hot take. I think Michael Mayer is that good of a prospect.
Yeah, he's definitely in that range. Also, I did send you the link to the draft.
He says Eric Gray. Eric Gray is an older prospect, but he is. I have seen some people talk about rush yards over expected and some of these more advanced metrics. And Eric Gray has performed very well in stuff like that. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on because when it comes to running backs, we probably need to be way less concerned with fifth-year seniors and that kind of thing than you would with wide receivers because running back is just kind of a get in and go kind of position. If you're a good running back, you're a good running back. It's not usually as important to be age adjusted. It still matters, of course, but it's not as important as the wide receiver or quarterback position, for example.
The thing with Eric Gray, right? The only quote unquote knock on his profile is that he was kind of a Debbie Darling to begin with, right? Because after his first freshman year, he had an efficient year. He looked pretty good. And then the last couple of years, whether it was dealing with injuries, not playing as well, he kind of fell off the radar. And then this year, obviously an older player, but I mean, he had a phenomenal season, 3-down capabilities. Kind of if I were to compare it to something, oddly enough, it's funny because it's a similar situation, but he's not as big. But I mean, Ramondre Stevenson kind of had that effect where, He's inefficient, didn't really like look good in the past couple of years, and then his final year he just absolutely blew up. So if he can get day or like early day 3, late day 2 level capital, he's definitely interesting, especially in
and
your
it'll
third
help
round.
because he'll be at the Senior Bowl, right? And we know, like as fantasy players, we're not as concerned with the Senior Bowl as maybe we should be, but we know NFL teams actually care about it. So if Eric Gray and some of these other senior players, Zay Flowers and some of these guys are at the Senior Bowl, it's gonna increase their chances of going high in the draft because these teams get to physically see them on the field working with players of their own caliber if they were a small school player, whatever the case is, and that matters to NFL teams. And Eric Gray will probably get drafted in the top 75 as a result. Yep. If he's good and he tests well and all that kind of stuff, because he was very productive this year.
100%. I will post the link, by the way.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, throw that in the Discord. You can throw it in the YouTube chat as well if you want. Got Lance for the 110 and B-Rob. Yeah, that's such a steal right now. Like, that's insane. Gibbs to Miami, that would be a great fit. If he went to Miami, that would, I would be comfortable taking him 103, 104, whatever area, 102 in a 1 quarterback draft for sure.
Well, that's the thing with them, right? Is obviously you got those 2 big threats on the outside, but I mean, your main pass catching back was fucking like Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson. Like, you didn't have a guy realistically that could fill that type of role on third down, give a check down option that could potentially, break away a big gain if you need him to. So adding that to the fold, they don't have a first round pick, so they'd have to take him with the second. So I can't really see him falling to that late second area. But I mean, if he does fall and he ends up on Miami, I think that would be a great fit. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be an awesome fit. If anywhere he can go where he can be efficient and score touchdowns will be a good fit for him, whether it's Philly or Miami or, potentially Las Vegas or something like that. How do you value someone like Jameson Williams versus these rookie wide receivers? So as prospects or right now? Because as a prospect, I would say Jameson Williams would probably be in a similar tier as these top 3 guys. Right? Yeah, I would prefer Jameson Williams, the prospect, to Quentin Johnston 100%.
Yeah, no,
I would say Addison and JSN would be slightly ahead of him for me, but he would probably be like my wide receiver 3 in this class.
I would prefer Quentin Johnson. I'll tell you that.
Right. I know you're higher on QJ than me, but like he'd be among these guys, probably these top 3 guys.
If I were to say it from last year, so obviously I preferred Burks and London, but I would say he would be the 3 out of that group. If I were to say it, like going into this draft, for me personally.
JMO or Quentin Johnson?
Quentin Johnson, sorry, he would be the 4 because I would have had Garrett Wilson higher.
Yeah. I personally, Addison being my wide receiver 1 right now, I would definitely rather have London and Wilson, who are my 1 and 2. I'd still probably rather have Burks as well. Yeah. And then I don't know, that's pretty close. Addison would either be 3 or be 4 behind Burks.
It's fair.
And then after that, I had Dotson, Olave, and JMO like really, really close grades wise.
I think Burks is going to go the fuck off this year. I can't wait.
But if you talk about like where would I value Jameson Williams now too, because that's a separate discussion because we've already seen a bit of his rookie season. Would you rather Jameson Williams or re-roll on one of these rookies?
Jameson Williams or re-roll on one of these rookies? Depends on which rookie. We know now. Which rookie?
Let's say you get the 106. So you have your choice. Like it's a super flex draft. You have your choice.
I'm taking any of the receivers this year.
Over JMO now, knowing what we know now?
Yes.
Yeah, I would take Addison and JSN now. I would still take JMO over QJ though.
Well, if anything, his value has gone down, and I would have preferred those.
It hasn't though. That's the thing, right? On the open.
No. But like for me, it's gone down.
Right. On the open market, though, it hasn't, which matters.
No, I agree. But I'm saying like if I had to make the choice for me, like I couldn't trade them, I couldn't flip them based off the market because obviously I'm playing the market over players anyways. Like I would just rather have Quentin Johnson and any of the
draft started, by the way, if you want to share your screen.
Yeah, that would be very good. I also didn't realize my screen wasn't shared. That's ideal. I'm actually on the clock here. Got a minute to choose. Like I just said, Quentin Johnson would be my number 1 wide receiver. So obviously I'm going to take him here. Top 5 looks pretty pretty much what you would expect. The top 3 receivers, the top 2 running backs, and then there's sort of a little bit of a tier gap.
Yeah, I would say the 102 to 105 range of this is pretty fluid for me. Like there's no real distinction between these guys after Bijan. You probably would rather have the 105 than the 102, to be honest, in a 1 quarterback draft. Just to give me one of those guys that's in that similar tier, and then maybe pick up a pick to trade down if you wanted to, if you don't really see a huge difference. So I'm on the board here. My highest rated wide receiver was Josh Downs. He just went off the board. So I'm probably looking running back here. Tucker is my RB2, so I'm going to go with Tucker. Again, Tucker, I don't know where he's going to get drafted, and this is a whole separate discussion, but I do think Tucker will be a riser because I think he's going to test well. And I think he has, second round running back written all over him, like day 2 grade kind of film. NFL teams will see him that way. And once he goes to the combine and runs like a 4.42 at 214 pounds or something like that, he's going to lock that status in. So for me, people over exaggerating that he's going to be like a day 3 pick, I just don't see it happening personally. I think he's got the traits that NFL teams like in running backs, and he's been productive. And I heard somebody say that, like, oh, he's a Syracuse running back, so people aren't going to like that. Like, I don't think NFL teams actually give a shit where these guys went to school. Yeah, they favor Alabama and Georgia guys a little bit, but I do think that Tucker being a great prospect really has nothing to do with what school he went to.
For sure. What's the worst landing spot where JSN could go where he'd be lower than 101? Well, no matter what happens, he wouldn't be my 101.
Yeah, I mean, if you say wide receiver 1, sure, but not 101. Yeah, there's absolutely zero circumstances in which I would take JSN over Bijan Robinson. Even if Bijan goes to the Ravens and JSN went to the Chiefs, I would still take Bijan over him.
As much as I like JSN, like obviously the top 3 are neck and neck, but like there's a lot of scenarios where he wouldn't be the wide receiver 1 for me off the board.
Yeah, and if you value him that way, again, do not select him at 101.
Yeah.
Trade down from the 101, go to 102 or 103, wherever you can get JSN for sure. Pick up, you could probably get a first-round pick of some kind at least on top of the 102 or the 103 for Bijan Robinson in one quarterback formats, because people they know what Bijan is.
Yep, 100%. Is 102 plus 111 too much for the 101 and a 1 quarterback? No, it's not enough.
No, that's fine. I'm fine giving that up.
It's not enough, to be honest.
Yeah, I wouldn't do. If I was the 101, I would not do that. So
me neither.
If it's just purely first round rookie picks that you gave up, what is the value of the 101 in a 1 quarterback format? What do you need?
I'd probably need at least the 102 and like the 104 or 105 if I'm moving it. In a 1 quarterback? Dude, in a 1 quarterback.
Would you do it for 102 in a 2024 first?
102 in a 2024 first? It depends where the team's coming from for the 2024.
Let's say it's a mid to late 2024 first. They're trying to get a competitive running back.
Is my roster in shambles? Because if my roster's in shambles, if I'm like a 101 caliber,
you're a couple years away. You're a year or 2 away.
I'm probably taking it at a process.
Yeah.
It's tough, though.
Think that's probably a smart idea. Because, even though people know how good Bijan is, his value's still going to climb once people actually see him on an NFL field producing. It shouldn't, because I'm almost guaranteed certain that this guy's going to be a great player in the NFL, but people will still have that, thought in the back of their mind, and his value will still increase. So even if you're a non-competitive team, you should still take him because he's going to be useful. He's going to be very valuable.
Well, I'll tell you right now, it's pretty interesting. My thought process, obviously in Superflex, the running back position is much more replaceable. In a 1 quarterback league, though, I kind of just want the studs, because realistically here, like, you want the players that are going to win you your championship. The reason why in Superflex it matters more to build your value, especially, is that in a Superflex league, your quarterbacks are going to be giving you, if you build them right, 50 plus points per game, 45 plus points per game. So the difference between, a Bijan caliber running back and even a Gibbs caliber running back is much less substantial in a Superflex league, because you're already making up the points at the Superflex position. Well, if you think about it, if you have the same league format and you got the Superflex versus a 1 quarterback league, well, that turns from a start 10 and a 1 quarterback to a start 11. So depth is going to matter more inherently, right?
Right.
If you're able to get, a player like Bijan in a 1 quarterback league, it's basically like when you're in redraft and you have a Saquon Barkley, a Christian McCaffrey, where if you have that player inserted into your lineup, it's going to matter much less in terms of what your replacement level players do, because you're getting such an advantage at that one position, right?
Right. Yeah. The more you can get out of one player, the better, because if you start 7 players, you start 7 players. And if one of your players is performing like 2 players, like Bijan could, if he hits his ceiling, like Christian McCaffrey has in recent years that we've seen, like, Jonathan Taylor did 2 years ago, like some of these dudes Cooper Kupp did 2 years ago, then that value over replacement level players is so much higher, because you can start, Bijan and, a flex receiver like Jahan Dotson versus starting, let's say, Nick Chubb and Leonard Fournette in your running back and flex.
It's honestly very interesting when I contextualize it, where in a Superflex league, I want to build my depth. I want to build as much value as possible, because I ultimately want to build my quarterbacks the best they can be. In a 1 quarterback league, obviously that matters a certain degree less. So I just kind of want to, like, if I have to, I'll overpay for studs. But in a best ball league, you can just completely flip that on their head, because you want more startable players. So the value of maybe even a Bijan would be less in a best ball league than it would be in a standard roster league. Because if you have, 2 players with 18 point per game ceilings versus 1 player with a 22 point per game ceiling, well, guess what? You have more availability for those high ceiling players to enter your lineup any given week.
Right.
So it's a lot of
the set it and forget it part of best ball is obviously very different. And actually the one Bijan share that I'm going to have this year is in a best ball league, unfortunately. So, but yeah, so we already answered that. Pick 1, 205, D-Hop or Kamara. I think I'd probably take DeAndre Hopkins out of those options because I think that Hopkins will probably get traded or moved or whatever the case is. And I think there'll be a selling window where you can get more than the 205 for him. Assuming that's, a super flex 205 and stuff. I think that's a pretty valuable pick, I would say. A super flex 205, you'll probably get a solid, I don't remember who went in the super flex draft, but even in this one quarterback draft, you were still getting a guy like A-Chain there. So I think it's a pretty decent player, but I would prefer the DeAndre Hopkins at this point in time there. I think Boutte is wide receiver 3, highest upside player in the draft, probably. I don't disagree that he has a high ceiling. I just don't. I think his profile has more warts than the other 3 guys. I wouldn't go crazy to say that if you wanted to say him versus QJ as a conversation, because they're not the same type of player because they're different body styles.
They're big play players.
They're both being propped up at the like result of like they're going to be these great alpha wide receivers in the NFL. They're the 2 guys of the top 5 wide receivers that have alpha size.
Yeah, 100%. I kind of, was going to make a joke about the fact that Kayshon Boutte should focus on the game rather than his own game. If you guys know what I mean.
We respect Riz around here.
I'm just saying he did get busy, even if he wasn't busy on the field, he was busy off the field. So
as long as he doesn't go to the Vikings, we're good because we don't need another love boat situation.
Oh my God. All jokes aside though, I mean, like the talent is there. The only question mark I have is like, he seems like out of the top receiver talents in this draft, the one that's most likely to just nosedive to round 4. You know what I'm saying?
Like I would say he's the most likely to just be a bust in the NFL as well. Just given what we've seen, the inconsistencies. But I mean, if he tests well, if he's, we don't hear anything personality wise about him from the combine and stuff, I think there's a good chance he goes in the second round and is going to be a very solid pick for you guys late in your first round of your rookie drafts for sure.
100%. Yeah, no, it's if you guys don't know the story, just you could search it up on your own behalf. Let's get on to the next comment. Sorry. I'd probably go Kamara. That's fair. Hyatt is the biggest wild card for me. I like him as a top 3 receiver in 2023, but not sure where he goes in the draft. Hyatt to me,
it's a bit steep for me. Top 3 wide receiver.
Like if you want to say top 6 or 7, I could probably be on.
I would have no argument with somebody saying he was top 5 receiver in this class.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know what it is, man. I just don't think he's going to be a high level, target commander at the next level. Like, I feel like, could he be like, I don't want to say Marquez Valdes-Scantling, but could he play that?
No, he's going to be better than that. He won the Biletnikoff this year, so he definitely showed he's got some ability to command targets. I
agree.
A lot of things broke right this year for him.
I agree he's better than that, but what I'm saying is like, if he landed somewhere between MVS and like Will Fuller, that's probably what I would say his range of outcome would be. Where like if he hits a ceiling and he becomes a Will Fuller, I mean, we saw Will Fuller was a legitimate receiver at one point, but the thing is there's just so much volatility in terms of how the market's going to view him if he doesn't, do well in his first year. Whereas like, a guy like Boutte, a guy like, obviously the top 3, they have a lot more leeway for, potentially disappointing rookie year in terms of their market value, similar to what we saw with Jameson Williams this year.
Yeah. I think if people want to just compare him to Jameson Williams, like we're not talking about the same caliber prospect. I think Jalen Hyde is clearly a tier behind another speedster like Jameson Williams, the same type of player. Obviously, they're straight line speed, take the top off the defense type of dudes. I don't think Hyatt's going to be nearly as athletic as Jameson Williams would have been had he been able to test as well. He'll probably run like, high 4.3s or something like that, which is definitely good speed for the role that he's going to play in the NFL. But I think he's more of like a complementary type of receiver. And I think a guy that probably needs to find his way into like the mid-second round. I actually drafted him at 2.7 in this draft. I think that's a pretty fair assessment where I think he should go. He maybe could have gone a little bit higher than that, but for the most part, I think that's fair.
Sorry, my reaction is I keep missing Darnell Washington on these boards. I keep missing it. Is he like the bottom ranked tight end on sleeper boards? Because I picked Kincaid thinking that Washington was gone because I didn't see his name, and then he just goes like 6 picks later. Like I'm like,
yeah. I mean, for what it's worth, Kincaid was actually mocked ahead of Michael Mayer and Daniel Jeremiah's mock in the first round.
That's crazy.
I don't know if I'm going to get there with Kincaid. I think he's more of like your Hunter Henry type of prospect, like where he's productive. He'll probably be, fantasy relevant, but not a guy that I think is ever going to be like a top 6 dynasty tight end.
Yeah, like at least, with Washington, I mean, you're looking at a legitimate 6'7", 265 player that can realistically just fucking absolutely dominate seams.
I mean, I'm not super excited about him either, to be honest.
Really?
No.
With the draft capital?
It's not the draft capital. I think he's going to get drafted relatively high, probably on day 2. I think he's kind of like this year's like Jelani Woods, where it's like, yeah, he's like very athletic. He's very big. I just think he's probably not going to hit his ceiling. I think everybody's a little overreacting to his ceiling because he's never really looked great on his production. I know he's sharing a field with Brock Bowers and all that stuff.
And Tariq Gilbert.
Yeah, like, I don't know, man. It's going to be tough. If he tests like an absolute freak of nature, he's going to get drafted high for sure.
Also,
Tajay Spears is on the board here. He's small, but man, he's fucking fun to watch.
Him and McBride are interesting in this range.
Yeah. So let's rip through some comments here. We got Vatican says, yeah, Kamara should be good, but he could be suspended. I would easily rather the 205 than Alvin Kamara. Not even close.
Yeah, not even close.
That could be a hot take because Kamara's, been very great in fantasy in years past. But if you have Kamara in your league and you can get a mid-second round pick for him, you should fucking do that yesterday.
Well, I mean, if we're looking at it right now, this is a 1 quarterback league, but like, I mean, would you rather take the shot on a guy like Devon Achane?
I would much rather have Devon Achane than Alvin Kamara.
Yeah, I would. I would too.
Yeah.
I would too. And I know everybody and their mother is going to throw out this comp too. And I think I kind of mentioned it earlier, but I mean, I just want them to be in like a high octane offense where they can just like say, hey, yo, go be Jerick McKinnon for what the Chiefs are doing. Go be this space back. Go use your elite athleticism after the catch and, score 8 touchdowns in 7 games or whatever the fuck McKinnon's doing right now.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
Pick a side you prefer in a 1 quarterback league. Sutton, or 101 and 101, sorry, or 104, 107, 109. So in a 1 quarterback league, we're talking you probably get your best receiver or one of your best receivers at 104, and you're getting, at best case scenario, you get a Boutte Downs, Tucker combination of some kind or something like that, or you get Sutton and Bijan.
I'm probably just gonna go with Sutton and Bijan, to be honest. In a 1 quarterback.
That's a lot of capital though. Like that's tough, man. You got a couple bullets in the chamber there. If you come away with that with Jordan Addison, Sean Tucker, and Kayshon Boutte or something, like that's pretty decent. It would really all depend on what kind of depth you need if you're trying to compete. I think the stud factor really leans me to Bijan, but
that's what I'm saying. Well, because
that's a pretty fair trade offer. If you like Sutton's is not like, how much is Sutton worth? Like an early second round 1 quarterback pick?
In a 1 quarterback league, yeah, absolutely. The way I look at it, right, is with Bijan Robinson. If you're thinking about it, if you're tearing down from Bijan, you could probably turn Bijan realistically into what, like fucking ETN in a first.
Yeah, give or take. I would say ETN plus like a mid first this year.
Right. So if you're doing that, like hypothetically, if you're talking about the value that you can get from Bijan, even if you don't have Bijan in this deal, let's just say the opportunity cost of trading Bijan for this package. Let's just say again, ETN in a first is probably about the market value for him in a 1 quarterback league. So then you'd be looking at ETN, Sutton, and maybe what, the 105, the 108, maybe at worst, right? Yeah. And even then, like I think it would probably be 105. That would probably be the market value Walker / ETN in the 105.
Yeah, and Jackson at that point, RB buys. We actually did a video on this a couple days ago. If you want to go check it out, RB room is only Najee, B-Rob with no picks this year. Yeah, you're going to need to go cheap, most likely. If you don't have any picks, you're probably going cheap, selling wide receivers for odds and ends here and there. I would probably suggest you wait until September to actually buy these running backs because it sounds like you're in a winning window, and you don't probably want to spend your time buying, guys that could get injured before the season starts. You don't have to fill your roster until then. So I would probably just wait if I were you. But if you wanted to go after some cheap guys, we did talk about them a couple days ago in the running back buys and sells. Could do a video comparing the wide receiver class from 2022 to 2023 just based off of prospect profile. I absolutely will. Trust me. Once we get closer to the draft and I have all the information, databases and all that kind of stuff, I absolutely will do that. And I'll probably throw 2021 and 2020 in there as well, just to show you guys how these kind of stack up. I actually tweeted out like how I would rank these players a couple days ago. from 2022 and 2023. But don't worry, I will have the 2023 guys stacked up once we have combine information, especially too, and official size measurements and all that kind of stuff. I take any top 10 pick over Jameson Williams. That's not what his market value is right now. I don't disagree with you. I don't think that's an outrageous take, especially in superflex when you're getting a chance at, pretty decent prospects there at the 110 if 4 quarterbacks go before that pick. I personally would probably take Jameson Williams over like the 109 to 110. I'd probably rather have like the 107 though than Jameson Williams right now.
Well, like the way I think about it, right, is I would take the top 3 receivers right now over him, like assuming proper draft capital.
Right, and if you get draft capital for Tucker, I'm taking him over him too.
Yeah, or I mean, I would consider it like re-rolling basically. Like I would still prefer him over Downs. I would say, obviously, if Downs went like top 15, top 20, and he tested out of the wazoo and he got like all the glowing signs, like sure, maybe you consider it then. But
even if that happened, I think I would still take Jameson Williams over.
I would too. But I'm saying like it becomes closer there. But I mean, like the market value right now might honestly be like realistically Downs in another like late first.
Yeah. It's not, he's a guy that's valued super highly right now, mainly off of what he could be. And he could definitely lose quite a bit of value. I just think he's valued a lot closer to his high end range of outcomes. He could, if he comes out next year and he has a great season and, whatever the case is, I think he's still probably capped as like wide receiver 8 to 12 in Dynasty because of Amon-Ra being there. What people's perception is going to be. They could definitely be like one of the best young duos of receivers in the league. No doubt about it, but I still think Jameson Williams being like wide receiver 16, 17 in ADP right now or in Dynasty value, there's a chance that if he has like a mad year next year that we're talking about a guy that has very little value.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. I have JMO. I'm thinking of flipping him for a higher pick, and then Claire also followed this up with potentially JMO in the 110 for JT. I would do that in a heartbeat. And
yeah, I absolutely will.
I'm a running back hater by word, but if you're telling me I can flip, let's just say that's what Josh Downs and Jameson Williams. Yeah, sign me up. I'm taking Jonathan Taylor.
Absolutely. Especially if you're in any kind of competing situation. Yeah. I probably wouldn't add a second rounder. He said, would adding a 2024 second be too much? I'd say a little bit. If you could get something back on top of JT, maybe then I'd be fine doing that. But that's pretty solid.
If it's a mid to late 2, I'm okay with it. But see.
I'd want like maybe at least a dart throw back on top of Jonathan
maybe a
Taylor
3,
giving up the mid to late 2.
Yeah, no, I feel that.
Trey Lance or 102 in a super flex. This is a real question for a lot of people because it's like, if you have the 102, do you just wait and take Bryce Young or take whatever your highest rated quarterback is? Or do you just want to go and get Trey Lance now? I lean that I would rather have Bryce Young at this point in time.
If I could see, the thing is I'm taking the 102 because of the utility of the pick. Like I feel like if I wanted to tier up at quarterback, 102 is going to be much more appealing in those trade talks than Trey Lance would. However, if you're forcing me saying, you know what, you can only have this asset or that asset, and you have to stick with it, you can't flip it. I personally would still lean the upside of Trey Lance, given the dual threat, given the Konami ability.
I personally just disagree with that take. I think that's way too much to inherit.
Really, eh?
I mean, you're never going to be faced with that scenario for starters where you'd have to hold an asset. That's why I'm saying there's way too much risk involved with that because
I'm saying if I was forced to hold the asset, I could not trade. Let's just say your trade
that scenario doesn't exist.
But let me explain. If your trade deadline was turned off and you had you could not trade assets at all. Rest of the thing. Yeah, I would take Lance. I would. However, like I was just pointing to, the 102 gives you much more utility than Trey Lance right now because there's probably 4, 5, 6 managers in your league that are really interested in trading for Trey Lance, and realistically, none of them are going to be in the playoffs at this point because it's more so rebuilders taking a chance on a young quarterback versus the 102 where you can go to a team that maybe lacks depth and say, hey, listen, I will give you, mid-tier quarterback 2 here. Daniel Jones in the 102, give me Trevor Lawrence. Daniel Jones in the 102, give me, off my head,
Justin Herbert.
Tier up, Justin Herbert. You know what I mean? Like, that's a more plausible
You might be able
trade.
To flip the 102 straight up for Kyler Murray right now, and that's not an exaggeration.
Right? So when you have that much utility with the pick, I'm just going to take the pick 100 times out of 100 here, even though if I were forced to hold one of the assets, I would prefer the upside of
This
Lance.
Is exactly how I feel about this discussion. I just don't I know I shouldn't have to pay 102 for Trey Lance.
And you won't have to.
That's exactly why I wouldn't do it. I would rather have the 102. If I can get Trey Lance for the 110 and a small piece, I would like, obviously you're about to say like, obviously I would rather do that as well.
Well, Bush, I think we're agreeing, but you're arguing a different thing than me. Because again, given the market, I would prefer the 102 absolutely, because you have more utility with the pick. I'm saying if I was forced to play let's just say you had to pay the 102.
I would still take the 102 even if I was forced.
If you were forced to keep Bryce Young versus Trey Lance,
absolutely, give me the 102.
I
think Bryce Young, given the downside risk of Trey Lance, is a way safer bet and has maybe not the highest ceiling in the world like Trey Lance would, obviously, but the difference between like Trey Lance hitting his ceiling range of outcomes percentage wise versus him hitting his downside risk of outcomes, the difference there is way more vast than what I think Bryce Young is going to be like locked and loaded top 12 dynasty quarterback the second he gets drafted for starters. And if he plays well as a rookie, should be locked and loaded into that range for the next 10 years.
The reason why I will rebuttal that to a certain degree is that we are seeing right now Trey Lance probably at his lowest value.
He can go lower than this if he loses.
You think so?
Yes. If he loses his job, he can go lower.
If he loses his job, I think he's getting traded to a team.
That's fair, but he's still going to be valued lower. He's in San Francisco right now. He's being valued as if he's the quarterback for San Francisco.
Potentially, but I feel like the market's already built an ambiguity with Brock Purdy playing the way he has. I think
they have clear. A little bit as far as like what you can get him for, but as far as his rank among quarterbacks, I don't think they have. He's still being ranked as a top like 13 quarterback for most people.
But how low does that fall? Even if he, they say tomorrow Purdy's a starter, because that already implies in its own right that your third overall pick investment, he doesn't fall that much.
He probably falls to like 17 to 20. That's why I said like he's a good buy, relatively speaking, but the 102 is just it's a way safer asset.
Fair.
Like you said, you can use it to move up to you can get Dak Prescott straight up probably for the 102.
100%. Again, like if I had to make the choice, I would take the 102 because I have the utility of the pick because I can feel it.
Okay, we've already gone over this. Let's move on to the next thing here. Okay. So Rob said meant wide receiver 1. His initial question was, what's like the worst landing spot for JSN? Basically is what his question was.
Worst landing spot for JSN?
Probably anywhere with like a solidified like slot receiver, right? Like
Detroit
would probably be the worst landing spot for him.
Probably.
But even then, like, I mean, it's still it's a good offense. Like, I don't think that'd be a terrible landing spot. I think a lot of people would say maybe a place like Minnesota would be a bad landing spot because they already have Justin Jefferson. But I actually think that'd be a great landing spot for him.
Great spot. You got an elite player on the outside there, and you let him just play the slot. Absolutely.
I'm hoping that we get the worst landing spots possible out of these rookie wide receivers, so everybody overthinks them. Like, give me JSN to New England because everybody's going to say that's horrible. He's playing in the Patriots offense. Give me Jordan Addison going to Houston and JSN to New England, so everybody bypasses them in rookie drafts.
For real. You got offered 101 for the 107, 108, 109. My team is ready to add Bijan to compete.
Yes, you take that easily.
I agree.
100%. Starting roster size would definitely matter. If you have a very shallow starting roster, you want Bijan in there. Traded King Henry Gallup and a 2024 second for the 105 and Khalil Herbert. What do you think? Yeah, it's a great move. I think Herbert and Gallup are give or take a wash, I would say.
Probably around.
I think I'd rather have Gallup slightly, but it's not a huge difference.
Fine, if you wanted to say it, Herbert, like let's just say hypothetically, Herbert in the 24 second is a wash.
Yeah, that's fair.
Let's just say.
And like the 105, you're going to get a very solid wide receiver prospect. If it's super flex, you have a chance to quarterback as well. So yeah, you're definitely in a good spot there.
Yeah.
Chan Hughes says 12 team super flex. By the way, so it's a super flex league. You're still taking the 101.
Yeah. Would you trade Javonte for the 106? No, I would take Javonte.
I would rather have Javonte as well, slightly.
Yeah. Saw Bijan for Javonte in the 106. Okay, so this is like a different version of the other question. So basically Javonte and like Addison / Quentin Johnson or Bijan.
Maybe a quarterback though too.
Maybe a quarterback.
You could get Levis there potentially.
I'm taking the package personally. Yeah, assuming this is a super flex. Okay, the way I'll describe it, if it's
one quarterback, give me Bijan. Yeah, absolutely.
The super flex, I'm taking the package because I could do more with it. If it's one quarterback, I'd just give me Bijan at that point.
Yeah. Like your worst case scenario, you have a top receiver. Best case scenario, you have a first round quarterback probably, or Tucker or Gibbs potentially.
Yeah. I love that deal. He's a dog.
I just love this tight end. Yeah, this tight end class is underrated, man. There's some good players in it.
Claire, we're actually planning on starting a couple this offseason, so stay tuned. Just signed up for the Patreon, so I appreciate you.
Yeah, and I believe Claire signed up for the year on Patreon too, which is a feature that you guys can do. And I actually meant to talk to you about this behind the scenes. I was thinking that startup that we do maybe we do people who have only signed up for a year.
That's fine. Like
we love rewarding you guys. Like that, it's a year commitment to our Patreon is we really appreciate that. So I'd love to reward the guys that have done that already, 100%. And guys like Claire, I believe, was one of the guys that just did it recently. So he's definitely sketchy. I agree. Yeah, he's talking about Kamara. Hawkinson for Dynasty among tight ends, I think he's got to be a locked and loaded top 5 to 6 guy. Depends really. Like it all depends where you evaluate. Where you value the older tight ends, right? Because Kelsey and Kittle are tough to evaluate because they're older, but they're very productive. I think Hawkinson, if you wanted to rate him as high as 4 or 5, I wouldn't have a problem with it. If you wanted to put him down 6, 7, or 8, I wouldn't have a problem with it either.
I mean, we currently have him 7 and 8. So
7 and 8's like, again, I think we're relatively lower on TJ Hawkinson. I might actually move him up, to be honest. I think he actually is in pretty decent spot at this current point in time.
The problem I have with him, I currently have him 7, one spot ahead of Pratt, Freiermuth. But I just like personally Njoku better, given Watson fully getting back into that system, getting fully acclimated to that Cleveland system, and we saw the upside when he was at his peak for David Njoku. Imagine adding a healthy, performing Watson to that mix. So I think that's the discussion point, like you mentioned. But I mean, the top 5 guys: Goddard, Kelsey, Kittle, Andrews, Pitts. I'm all.
Well, I mean, Hawkinson's like 4 years younger than George Kittle. So in a rebuild, I don't hate somebody saying they'd rather have Hawkinson. And
I would want
what
Kittle.
It's worth, I believe, is like a year and a half younger than Njoku too. So you have that factor playing in. He also, for what it's worth, has a great profile. Like he had a good profile coming out. He was a top 10 pick. Like he's got a pretty stable profile. I know we kind of like treat him as if he's Hunter Henry sometimes, but I do think we're a little hard on him at times because he was very productive once he got to Minnesota. And if they don't add a solid, like a high end wide receiver in the draft, then there's a good chance that TJ Hawkinson's a top 3 tight end in fantasy next year.
Yep. There's Zach Evans' stat that he has 2.5 yards per carry against rated defenses. How do you digest a stat like that versus a total body of work?
That would be a watch the film statistic would be my answer to that question. You watch the film of those games. And for what it's worth, if you guys ever wonder, like, what games of film are we basing these evaluations on? My process has always been, I watch the best teams. Always. I don't care how well they played in those games. I'm watching them against the best teams. And especially for quarterbacks, I would say even more so matters like what games you pick to watch. And I tweeted out earlier today that, like, if you want to know if a quarterback prospect is good, you better watch them in the games they got their ass kicked, like hit, pressured, hurried. Because as I built out the quarterback database on our Patreon, I discovered there's been 3 quarterbacks to post a PFF passing grade under pressure below 70 in the last, or that are rated among the top 12 dynasty quarterbacks. And those quarterbacks were Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, and Kyler Murray. So unless your dude can run, then he better be good under pressure.
Yep. Absolutely.
And Anthony Richardson, for what it's worth, his passing grade under pressure is like 40, and Will Levis is like 55. So not great numbers there. No problem with this non-superflex draft there. This is helpful. Thanks, guys. No problem. Yeah, we already answered that question there. Sorry. We're just trolling.
Start 10 non-superflex picks 1, 2, 3, 5. Traded 4 for a lot. Wow. That's a great deal. I have the top receivers in depth, best quarterbacks. ETN's my only running back, and Trey McBride's my receiver. Should I reach jahmyr at 5 or go value? Absolutely value.
You never. If you're ever going to ask us the question, should I reach for this player in a rookie draft? We're always going to say no. Like pretty much.
Take the utility of the pick. I can tell you right now, the number 5 pick is getting you basically any tight end in Dynasty sans Kyle Pitts and Mark Andrews.
Yeah, and even then, man, like you might be able, like there's people who are low.
You're getting Kittle plus.
You might be able to get Pitts for 105 plus more. Like you'd have to add more to it, obviously. It wouldn't just just get it done, but you might be able to use that pick in a package deal to get those players if you're really ready to compete and you want a tight end. At least you're getting Kittle and Goddard with that.
Yep.
As a Trey Lance owner, I'm unable to get a 2nd round pick. You don't trade him then.
Yeah, don't trade him. That's simple.
I sent 103
Steal
for Jahmyr and 110. Feels like I pulled off a heist, dude. Yeah, that's a great move.
This probably
Jahmyr Chase should command one. Like definitely one. Like what? How big of a difference is it between Jahmyr Chase and Bijan? Like 101 for Jahmyr Chase straight up. How much do you need to add to Bijan to get to Jahmyr Chase?
Probably the 110 at least.
In a 1 quarterback league, you'd say that's
Jahmyr Chase is a top 2 overall pick in a 1 quarterback league.
Right, he's my 101 in 1 quarterback league.
Yeah, he's just top 2 regardless. Him and Jefferson are
but like the thing you got to remember is like Bijan will be the 103 probably, or 104 maybe behind Pitts in a 1 quarterback start.
Yeah, no, he'll
unless
be the
you're taking
like,
are you taking Lamb and those guys over Bijan?
No.
I probably not. I'd probably take Bijan over Lamb.
Yeah, I would probably agree there. So
you're talking really about the difference between, 101 wasn't even this trade, so I don't even know why I'm talking about this, but 103, 10, and Brees, those are, definitely great assets, and you're probably guaranteed in a one quarterback league, your top receiver, Jahmyr Gibbs plus Brees Hall, but Ja'Marr Chase is a different animal.
Question, do you think this is fair if it was 103, 110 and Brees?
I would take the package if that was the case.
But that's what I mean. I think that
the 110 helps balance it out for sure.
I think, but that's what I mean. The 110 being on the other side, I think would make it fair in terms of market value. Because I think Chase
it sounds like Claire just made this trade. We were talking about it. He said just dealt Jamison Williams 110, likely late 2024 second. Received Jonathan Taylor in the 312. That's a good move there. Yeah, Jonathan Taylor, absolutely. He should be a little bit less expensive this time than he was last year because he's still a year older. But realistically, what's the difference in his outlook right now? Seriously, there's no difference in his outlook. He's getting a rookie quarterback, which is going to help him long term versus, Matt Ryan like he was going to have this year.
I'm sorry. Great deal, by the way. I gotta read this out quickly.
Go nuts.
Peter, you just thefted that guy. I would rather, I think I have Godwin maybe even higher. If not, they're right neck to neck in terms of my rankings.
I'd rather have Deebo Samuel, but they're close.
But they are that. They're the same age and they're similar in terms of what they do at their ceiling. Man.
Classic. And that's so. Yeah, keep going. Sorry.
And I mean, Deebo in the 104. Does that get you the 101? That's probably barely get you the 101. Maybe
maybe
if you're desperate for depth, Deebo in the 104, maybe for the 101, and then you just got a free Godwin, I guess. You know what I'm saying though? If I'm trying to rationalize it. So yeah, congrats. If you're rebuilding as 101 and auto sell, at what point do you just
this was out? The talking point on Twitter all week this week. Everybody kept talking about this.
It's a sell if you're getting good value for it.
That's the answer. I don't know why this conversation lasted so long on Twitter, because everybody's like, if you're rebuilding, there's no way you should take Bijan Robinson. I'm like, yes, you should, because your goal in a rookie draft is to take players that are going to accumulate value. Bijan Robinson is the easiest example, the most safe player in the draft to accumulate value. That's why you take him 101. So whether he's good for your team on a rebuild or not doesn't actually matter, because you can sell him at any point. There is no guarantee that says you have to keep him the whole time.
I feel like we can make a course just that fucking other quote unquote analyst, because everybody's just stupid. It bothers me, right? People are so attached.
We're not yelling at you, by the way, Daniel. We're yelling at the conversation that happened around this question on Twitter.
People are so focused on names, man. Think of the utility of the asset you have. I don't care if your name is Julio Jones or Khalil Herbert. If you have the same market value, you are the same fucking value to me. I don't care. Really? Yeah. So this talking point is so dumb to me, because people are like, should you take Bijan? If you are not getting market value, and if the utility of the pick does not outweigh what you could potentially do with Bijan even by mid-season, take Bijan. If you're getting proper adequate value that you can transition and keep that rebuilding window for yourself, and somebody's offering you,
Justin Fields or Trevor Lawrence or something, take the quarterback in superflex.
Yeah, or if you wanted to get fucking 102 plus for it because you wanted the quarterback, just make sure you're not forcing a pick or you're forcing an inferior asset just because he doesn't fit my build. Because I'll tell you what, if you take him, it doesn't mean you have to keep him. It doesn't. People think because you take a player, you have to keep him for the rest of your dynasty career. It doesn't mean that. Because
maybe we're talking degenerates and we trade way more than everybody else. Maybe most people approach dynasty like that. I don't know.
Well, it's like what we were talking about with the Lance versus the 102 question, where if you're forced to take one or the other, I would prefer Lance, but I'm never going to take Lance straight up because I know the utility of 102 can net me a better package. Yeah. So people don't think about relative utility of assets. People think what they're going to do in terms of their production, and they're stuck to their team when that's never going to be your long-term solution. So I don't know. I get riled up by this
question directly, because he says, is it an auto sell? No, it's not an auto sell. You should absolutely shop the pick and see what you can get. And if this is a super flex league, my first response would be go after a young quarterback like Kyler Murray or like Justin Herbert, who just had down seasons.
Yep.
He says, at what point do you just hold and hope he maintains value? I don't think this dude's going down in value anytime soon. When he gets drafted, he's going to go up in value because he's going to go in the first round. When he starts in training camp, he's going to go up in value most likely because he's going to start commanding workloads. When he plays on the field, he's an excellent player. He's going to continue to go up in value. This time next year, I will bet my entire mortgage. I don't actually own a house, but I'd bet my mortgage on it that he is the consensus dynasty RB1, and it's not even close.
And let me make this like clear and very, very easy, right? Okay. You're talking about, if you could flip for quarterback equity, sure. Yeah, absolutely. Like 100%. Like if you could flip for top 15 level equity in superflex and, whether it's a quarterback or, picks plus, sure. Okay. Bijan Robinson could shred his ACL tomorrow, miss the whole season, and still be the dynasty running back 1. Case in point, you guys don't believe me? Take a look at Breece Hall's value right now, and Bijan Robinson's a better prospect.
Yeah,
Breece Hall is a
Breece played in the NFL, so maybe somebody makes that argument already. But
sure.
I'm telling you, Bijan's going to do the same thing. Like it's just going to happen.
Like Breece Hall's currently a 2-3 turn pick. It's sometimes even mid-second RB1 off the board in terms of relative market value, and he just tore his ACL in the mid portion of the season. So it's like people are so worried about, the downside. There is no downside risk here. If he was 23, 24 and he did it, yeah, we're worried. Or if he was Javonte Williams, where we like the upside, but we didn't know the long term. Also, Corey's camera just died.
Yeah, my camera just died.
Pain. Are you switching to the webcam, or are you just going to charge it?
No, I'll just talk with a black screen for a second. I'll let you close out this stream and answer the rest of the questions. We've been going for an hour. Just wanted to quickly shout out to Jared, who just signed up for the year's membership on our Patreon. You. So again, our startup. I'm getting antsy. I don't know about you. I want to do a startup soon. So we're definitely gonna give preference to those people that signed up for full year-long memberships. So I'm going to hop off here and let Danny answer the rest of the questions just because my camera died. But
the only thing I need from you is, we got to make our tell the audience our picks for this weekend.
That's right. Yeah, you're correct. So my underdog of the week is the Bengals. I actually bet money on them to cover the spread, but I do think they can outright win that game. My lock of the week, I think, is the Eagles to win by 7.5. I think the Giants are a good team. Don't get me wrong. And I think Daniel Jones has played well. But these great games that Daniel Jones has had have come against Minnesota twice in Indianapolis. Like the Eagles defense is kind of a different animal. I think they're just gonna prove that they're the better team. We saw that last time they played, and I think we're gonna see that again. And then I think Travis Kelce, if you guys want to make bets on the game, alternate receiving yards, 100 yards or something like that, Travis Kelce's going berserk tonight. Today, I guess, in this afternoon game. So I'm gonna hop off here, let Danny cover the rest of it, and then you give your picks here.
Last thing I wanted to ask is who advances to the AFC and NFC championships in your opinion?
It will be Kansas City and it will be Buffalo, most likely. I just think we're bound for a rematch of last year.
Yep.
Boring. And then NFC side of things, I'm riding with your Cowboys. I think it's gonna be Cowboys Eagles. Respect. I could be wrong. I think the 49ers are a better offense, better team roster wise, but give me the disadvantage of the quarterback.
100%. Appreciate having you on. I'm going to read off the last couple questions and I'll tell the audience my picks before I hop off here. So for those of you watching, I'll probably be going for, maybe until 3:20 or so, next 7-ish minutes. So stay tuned for that. But either way, take care, Corey. Let's enjoy some football. Also, I put on the wrong thing here. Okay, so Corey mentioned his picks. I'll go over mine and then read off the rest of your guys' comments. So my lock of the week is going to be Chiefs minus 8.5. I understand it. The public is very optimistic on the Jaguars. Obviously, a great comeback win this past week versus the Los Angeles Chargers, 27-0 down, ended up coming back. I'll tell you right now, if the Chiefs ended up in that type of position where they're up to that degree in this game, or even if it's a 10-0 type of game, the Chiefs are the type of team where if they go up on you, they are putting their foot on the jugular and they are finishing you off. So I understand people are going to point to, what happened earlier in the season where, the Chiefs got off the lead, the Jaguars came back, but the Chiefs ended up still covering. Like if they go up at all, they're still winning by 10 plus points. So I'm going with the Chiefs there. Cowboys money line, I'll get into my picks in a second, but I feel like everybody's kind of overweighing exactly, this offense, the way it's looking like with the 49ers. Oh, they beat them last year. The Niners are a better team this year. I think the Cowboys are a much better team than they were at this point last year. And they're much tougher. I feel like the main thing that people aren't really pointing to is that on both the offensive and defensive sides of the line of scrimmage, the Cowboys have gotten more physical. This year in particular, they were the 22nd DVOA rushing team against the run last year, where the 49ers absolutely carved them in the running game. They're ranked in the top 5 in terms of defensive DVOA against the run. If they're able to stop the run early, if they are able to make this a drop back game, they also offer, I believe it was John Owning that tweeted this, but 32.4% of the coverage that the Cowboys play this year has been disguised coverage. If you're forcing Brock Purdy to play in a drop back setting and you're disguising your coverage the way that the Cowboys do, I feel like this defense can get into him. So again, it's going to be a very close game. Obviously, two very talented teams. Corey mentioned the quarterback discrepancy between Dak and Purdy. I know people are hyping Purdy, but realistically, Dak is a legitimate top 5 to 8 quarterback in the NFL. I'm guessing this is going to be a 24-17 Cowboys win heading to the NFC Championship. Could come back to bite me. Obviously, you guys see the jerseys in the background, so I do have a personal bias here, but I'm confident, man. I think this is the year that the Cowboys get over the hump and they finally, get that demon, get that monkey off their back. In terms of who's going off, I think Devontae Smith is going to carve up the Giants secondary, 20-plus PPR points. And then finally, my official picks, 4 divisional picks this weekend heading to the championship weekend. Chiefs are going to win this matchup. Again, I mentioned -8.5. I like them to cover that. I think the Eagles are going to win that NFC East battle in that divisional round matchup tonight. And then in terms of tomorrow, Bills are going to beat the Bengals. I think the Bengals are probably going to cover in that game. And then finally, like I said, Cowboys money line versus the 49ers. So let's get through some of your guys' comments. We already read that one from Peter. What is Joe Mixon's price right now in a super flex? Realistically, you should be able to get about a mid-first based on market value. I'm selling for any first-round pick. I think he at this point he's clearly declining. Older player. I think that by this year he might have like an Ezekiel Elliott going into last year type of value. So if you're able to sell out, and realistically if you get a late first plus maybe a mid-2 or maybe a mid-first in its own right, I'd be willing to sell out on Joe Mixon right now. I disagree. He just hasn't gotten an opportunity there, Floor. I'm sitting at the 105 and a 12-team Superflex. Quarterbacks are Burrow, Tannehill, Wentz, Wilson. Assuming Young and Stroud are gone at 105, would you take Levis? If Anthony Richardson doesn't get top 10 to capital, I would prefer Levis because I think he's a lock too. But if Anthony Richardson gets top 10 draft capital, he would actually be my quarterback 3 in this draft. So yeah. What world does Stroud jump over Bryce? No world for me. I like Stroud. I think he's a good, pocket passer, maybe some type of range of outcome between, I would say floor level would be like a Jared Goff, mid-level maybe like, what Geno Smith did this year. And then the ceiling, of course, if he hits a ceiling, he could be like a Dak Prescott. So I think it's really good. But like I said with Bryce, I think he's got more out of structure ability, potentially more rushing ability at the next level. And I think his range of outcomes are a little bit higher. So I personally would prefer Bryce over Stroud from a fantasy perspective. Though you can make the argument in a real life perspective, they're very close. Do you need to have a certain Patreon level for the league or just 1 year long? 1 year long at the Ladster or Tone Setter tier will get it done. So anything after the Question Master basically will answer your questions. You guys get Discord access. But if you're Ladster or Tone Setter, you will get able to enter in one of these leagues. JSN in Minnesota is a horrible landing spot if you expect JSN to ever eclipse wide receiver 1 numbers. I mean, I would disagree to a certain extent because we've seen he's going to get his 170, 179 targets like he put up this year, but TJ Hawkinson was a very valuable piece at tight end. They still had Adam Thielen. They still have KJ Osborne. I feel like if you're adding JSN there, you're probably moving on from at least Adam Thielen, maybe even KJ Osborne as well within the next couple of years. And JSN could be that clear-cut number 2 receiver on a team that likes to throw the ball under Kevin O'Connell. So I would be fine with that landing spot. Again, you're probably right. He wouldn't have, top 5 level ceiling, but could he be, a back end wide receiver 1, maybe a high end wide receiver 2, Devontae Smith type? I think he could be that. Win now mode, do you want Deshaun Watson or Stroud Young? I have Deshaun Watson in my top 10 quarterbacks, the top 10 overall startup pick. So that for me is easily Deshaun Watson, even if there's more risk attached to that pick. Jonathan Taylor may get Tom Brady. Yeah, that would be hilarious. In a 10-team regular 1-point PPR Dynasty League, I have 101, 102, 103, 104. I'm a rebuilding team. Should I trade away any of those picks to get proven players now? Personally, if you're okay, it depends what your winning window is. First of all, I wouldn't mind cashing in on those picks. I also wouldn't mind if you're getting younger assets that won't depreciate in value, maybe buying low. Maybe, you see what Jonathan Taylor's worth. You see what, a young receiver would be worth in that aspect. You could leverage that, but for the most part, I'm probably just going to take those picks, or if you're not sold on a prospect, trading for 2024 capital with those picks. I bragged about my 2 steals. My one deal that I'm more worried about is I sent Austin Eckler for the 106 and a 1 quarterback. Saw Bijan Saquon Stevenson in the league and wanted out because of age. Yeah, I don't mind that transition whatsoever. You got the running back core. You get potentially, a good receiver prospect at that spot. I don't mind that move. I'm a contender in a 1 quarterback league. Trade 106, 110, and 111 for 101. I also have the 105. More than fine doing that there, Brotherhood. If you're ready to contend, I don't mind going out and getting Bijan. Jared, I am down. Yes, sir. Can't wait for a Dynasty startup. Thanks for the conversation, y'all. Excited for some football. I cannot wait. Obviously, again, Jersey in the background. I already mentioned my upset pick. Huge game, 6:30 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow. I need the Cowboys to take care of business. And I mean, the vibes I'm getting from this team, the way that they played both offense and defense against Tampa Bay. I get it. Tampa Bay is a weaker team, but we finally saw the offense and the defense for the Cowboys clicking at the same time. If those parts of those team can click, or those parts of this team can click at the same time like they did last week, it's going to be hard for anybody to beat them, honestly. And again, I don't want to be too optimistic because I still, have feelings, man, and it would hurt if they let me down. But I mean, if they're able to put it all together, I do think the ceiling on this team is quite high. Hit me up on that new Patreon link. Absolutely, brother. Absolutely. Appreciate you for signing up there. Kelsey, anytime touchdowns at minus 135, lock it in. Yeah, I think that is one of the locks of the week. I think Kelsey's going to absolutely smash this week. Chiefs are no guarantee with a lead. Mahomes blew it last year versus the Bengals. That is fair. However, I feel like for the most part, we've kind of seen them be able to hold their leads. Obviously the Bengals lead is going to sting though. So that is fair. I forgot about that game. 10-team Superflex PPR 204 Jaron Jones. This is 204, and it's not even close there, Anthony. Give me the 204 pretty easily, especially in a 10-teamer. Thanks. Anytime there, Rob. So we are currently at 3:22. Games will be kicking off, within the next hour. Going to get off, have a coffee, maybe eat some, and then get ready for the game. So let me finally answer Josh's question. Would you consider trading away any of the young running backs coming off of ACLs if you can get fair non-injured value? Absolutely. I mean, Brees is currently valued as the running back 1 in Dynasty. Actually mentioned him on a running back Dynasty sell video. So you guys can watch, some of those buys and sells. But I mentioned Brees. If you're getting running back 1 in Dynasty value for him, I don't mind flipping him for Jonathan Taylor. I don't mind flipping him, for Kenneth Walker / Travis Etienne plus. And then same thing with Javonte Williams. I think the market's kind of lower on him as a whole because he never has truly proven it quite yet like Brees. So I personally would probably hold Javonte unless you can get, the 103, 104 plus in this year's draft, which you probably won't. Who you got winning tomorrow, Bills or Bengals? I do think that the Bills are going to be able to win that game. However, minus 5.5 does seem a little bit steep. I think I would lean with the Bengals in the points, but let's just say a 28-24 type of game. Josh Allen, game-winning drive maybe. I think that could come to fruition. If the Bills are on their day, like I said, with the Cowboys where their ceiling is so high, if the Bills are playing their game both on offense and defense, like the Cowboys, their ceiling is incredibly high. Appreciate it. Have a great day. Appreciate you, P2, and appreciate all of you guys for tuning in. 74 still in here. Make sure you leave a like on the stream. Try to get us up in that YouTube algorithm. And of course, the recent support you guys have been showing to the channel has been truly, truly remarkable. So appreciate you guys for that. Hopefully we can hit 20,000 subscribers soon. We are just on the road about 18.1 thousand. So if you haven't already done so, 74 in here. I'm sure a couple of you aren't already subscribed, so make sure you hit that subscribe to the notification bell on. We are basically uploading a video every single day. Try to get live streams to you guys at least 3 or 4 times a week. So if you don't want to miss on that daily content, make sure you are subscribed. But till then, enjoy the weekend. Hopefully, if your favorite team is playing this weekend, they do win, unless you are a fan of the San Francisco 49ers. Take care.